Today, I'm exploring Newcastle with just one camera and a single prime lens. In my bag here, I've got no backups, no second lenses, just this single 85mm prime. Why? Because we're going to explore the concept that you can improve your creativity by wandering around with a single lens. Join me today as I wander this amazing photogenic city. So the great thing about shooting with a single camera and a single lens is it's just so lightweight. And that weight is key to your creativity. When you're lugging around a heavy camera, multiple lenses, tripods, etc., you get weighed down. And when you're weighed down, you get tired. And when you're tired, you lose your creativity. By carrying a simple prime lens, you are opening up yourself to a whole new world of creativity. You have to move around to get your shots. You can't zoom in, zoom out. You have to use your feet, you have to work, you have to move around up and down, hunt for locations to use this lens. There's another benefit to using prime lenses as well. Generally, they're smaller, they're lighter, but they're sharper, they have more contrast, and they often have much wider apertures, meaning you can shoot much better in low light. This lens is the 85mm 1.8, not the 1.4, the big expensive Sony, but it's such a simple, easy to use lens. When I was in Asia, I literally used it 85% of the time, and it really became my go-to lens. So my first shot of the morning was taken on the high-level bridge, and I wanted to use the shallow depth of field that the f1.8 can give. This was inspired by a project I did a couple of years ago called Glimpses of London, whereby I shot iconic landmarks within London without actually showing that landmark in the whole. What I've done here is photograph this dying plant with the iconic Tyne Bridge behind. The high-level bridge, as its name suggests, has a great view down on the other bridges of Newcastle. This bridge here is the Swing Bridge, sadly not functioning, but a beautiful, beautiful old Victorian bridge. And I waited for a red vehicle to cross it to enhance that redness. It also punches out of the really foggy, misty day that we were having that morning, with the Tyne in the background looking very, very blue. This was not my best shot, but it does show the idea of looking down on things, particularly from a higher viewpoint, especially when you're using a fixed focal length lens. If I could have done, I would have liked to have had the whole crane in the shot. As it is, it's kind of cropped out. That was the limitation of using a fixed prime lens, and of course I could not walk forward or back because I'm up high on a bridge. For this one, I wanted to frame a vehicle on the right-hand side of the arch, using the arch to actually create the frame, and then the left upper area as negative space. I made several attempts at trying to get this shot. I was drawn to the smoke coming out of the little chimney there, and I wanted to get that with the bridge in the background. But with the fixed focal length, there wasn't a great composition. So I moved back a little bit and decided to incorporate the word bridge from the Bridge Hotel with the bridge in the background and then the smoke in the left-hand side of the frame, and I think it works pretty well. And the last shot that I really like from this particular location sort of highlights the idea of punching out colours on a gloomy day. This is Newcastle Cathedral. You've got this sort of grey yellowy stone that's fairly nondescript, and then you've got this bizarre red clock sitting above the window there, and I framed it through the branches of a winter tree there to give it a little bit extra atmosphere. From the high level bridge, I walked down to Quayside, down a road called Side, and this is Side. And as you can see, it's a beautiful old cobblestone street, and it really looks spectacular. And for this particular shot, I wasn't anticipating the car. I'd got down really low and I wanted to use the curve of the cobbles to drive your eye up through the image. And as luck would have it, this car drove in with its headlights on, punching through the gloom and giving a little bit of subject matter to a shot that might have been quite boring otherwise. This image illustrates the idea of layers. Cities are particularly challenging when using a moderate telephoto lens, such as an 85mm. And here you've got the layers of 3 different bridges in one shot. Newcastle is famous for its bridges. You've got the stone columns of the high level bridge that I just walked down from, the beautiful red steelwork of the swing bridge, and then of course the majestic arch of the Time Bridge behind. And it's a shot that I really like. And the last shot from this particular location, I waited, as you do for buses, for about 30 minutes. That gave me time to practice on various passing cars and trucks to get the right shutter speed, to get motion in the shot. I basically wanted a double-decker bus to be framed by the arch of the Time Bridge and the lower part of the swing bridge. I was using a shutter speed, I think, of around 1/8 of a second, 1/4 of a second, and using a column to support myself to keep the image fairly steady. As I mentioned, the 85mm 1.8 doesn't have optical stabilization, but of course the Alpha 7 R5 does have in-body stabilization, so that was on, and that allowed me to get that low shutter speed handheld and still get the motion in the shot.
This lens works perfectly in this city on this day. As you can see, it's such a grey day. It's really foggy, it's misty, and it's dull. So I'm looking for compositions that actually fit that. I'm looking for the muted colours of this post-industrial city, the faded colours of the bridges and the buildings. I'm looking for shallow depth of field. I'm looking for picking out the details. I'm looking for black and white. There are great black and white shots to be had on a day like today. Isolating yourself to one lens really makes you think beyond what you normally shoot. You really have to work the shots. You have to look for the shots. You have to think about the shots. And that's a really, really good thing. Now, not everyone is going to have a prime lens, but here's a little tip. You can just walk around with a zoom and keep it at one fixed focal length. You need to be strong, you need to be disciplined with yourself, but you can set it at 85, you can set it at 50, at 24, and just walk around with it at that focal length. If you want to challenge yourself even more, go for a fixed aperture as well. Set it at f4, set it at f2.8 and see what you can shoot. Just going out with one lens, one camera, that light kit means you can walk further, shoot more and get much more creative images.
From the quayside under the Time Bridge, I headed along towards the Millennium Bridge and I noticed this old building. Newcastle is a very, very historic and nautically based city, and I just love this nod back to its nautical past. The charts at the very top here suggesting that it was a cartographer's office. I had to move in and out with my feet to try and get the right composition on the 85mm, but I think this particular one works here. I deliberately left the alarm in on the bottom right hand corner as a juxtaposition between the old and the new. As I headed down to the fantastic Millennium Bridge, I saw this single guy walking across the bridge. This is an uncropped image. This is 85mm from the position that I was shooting, and I just waited for him to move into that position and fired the shutter just as he was between the cables holding the bridge up, and those cables bring the eye down. It's a minimalist shot that uses leading lines and negative space to bring your eye to a very, very small subject. The only concession to editing that I really did in this particular shot is the red sign on the bottom right. I reduced the saturation of it a little bit to pull your eye away from it because it was quite bright. And lastly, down at the Millennium Bridge really benefits from a nice wide angle. It's such a sweeping wide bridge with this huge arch that goes over the top. It really does benefit from using wide angle shots, but restricting myself to a 85mm meant that I had to find an alternative composition. And I think this one works really well. It shows shallow depth of field using that 1.8, bringing the eye through with leading lines to the guy who appears to be walking out of the shot, but the actual irony is he's walking through the shot and will eventually come down towards me. And then you've got the beautiful Baltic flour mill, which is now an art gallery in the background, which adds a sense of depth to it.
So let me know in the comments if you do a lot of one lens shooting, what your thoughts on it. And if you've enjoyed this video, a like would be brilliant, a sub would be even better, and I'll see you in the next one.